Thanks very much, and I suppose I found Jim's speech talk very inspirational. You know, we're all probably sitting here thinking, I wish I could look forward to retirement like that. It's probably the ideal scenario. And as well, I suppose, to explain from Robert's presentation earlier on, which was very much theory and academic, it's something that we don't do well, I think, in the community volunteer sector. We're maybe tied up a bit in keeping funders happy and getting numbers up and looking at statistics. So, but I the whole way through Robert's presentation, I was thinking, well, that absolutely applies to our clients. That applies to. I was thinking of individuals who we transport, who you could categorise into all the different types of loneliness or isolation. So it was very apt and in my opinion, right on the money when it comes to describing the experiences we hear from our clients who use our services. So it very much fits in. So I'm going to tell you a bit about our organisation, what we try to do, and how we try and do it. So I'll just we are funded by, well, not DRD now, the new Department for Infrastructure. We provide sort of two main funded services. The one that we've provided longest is the rural dial lift service, which is for individuals who live in rural areas who don't have access to their own transport or to public transport. We provide it across 3 old council areas of Derry City, Strabane and Omagh. There are 11 organisations like ours across Northern Ireland with a rural focus. There are another number then with those in the northwest or in the city here will be familiar with bridge accessible transport, and those who are maybe doing their work in Belfast will be aware of Disability Action and their transport scheme. So we're each funded by the same department with a slightly different focus depending on whether we're urban or rural. And then our third point there, we do provide funding for local community groups for their activities. Now we have 16-seater minibuses, which really only suit smaller, maybe rural groups for their wee outings or their we have sporting groups, we have scout groups, things like that. So we do that primarily evening and weekend, and that's probably to make better use of our resources, our vehicles. A minibus can go 24 hours a day if you look after it well enough. So we're not limited to a driver's contract, or so we try and use the vehicles as much as we can. That brings in a wee bit of money to help subsidise the individual service. So we are a charity. We're managed by a voluntary board of directors. That's I think 10 of our 18 directors. They do have a real commitment and a focus on looking after people and providing the best service we can. And we are absolutely driven by their commitment to it and their passion for it. So a lot of our directors are with us 10, 12 and 14 years, and it means a lot to them. So there is a great drive coming from our board, and they are people from local rural areas who are passionate about looking after their neighbours and looking after their friends who may need transport. We had the academic stuff earlier. I'm a bit of a scientist. I like numbers and facts and figures and efficiencies and stuff like that. But just to give you an idea of the volume of activity we do, this is a year ago now, this information. But our rural dial lift service, that we provided nearly 37,000 individual passenger trips across our operation area of Derry, Strabane and Omagh. Our urban scheme, which we only provide in Omagh town and Strabane town, is over 8,000 passenger trips, and then our group hire service is 34,500 passenger trips in the year. So, and a passenger trip is when we lift someone and take them somewhere, and if we take them home again, that's another trip. So when you talk about the trip, people might think there and back. For us, a trip is considered a single journey, so that's what those figures relate to. And I suppose through this, I'll throw up a few slides as we go along, but I mean, we talked earlier about loneliness and isolation and in rural areas, and these are 2 brothers who live together outside Ardstraw. And I mean, for them, we take them 3 days a week into a local luncheon club, and without stereotyping and without making too many assumptions, I would be very surprised if these guys could make themselves a 3-course meal and look after themselves as well as they do when we take them into a Strabane community project in Strabane, where they get a starter, a main course and a dessert. And if they're into a bit of bingo or a bit of chat, they'll get that and they'll get their cup of tea. So these are stereotypical of people who certainly they may be able to function okay at home, they may be able to manage, but in my opinion their quality of life improves greatly when they can engage with other services like the luncheon club, or getting out to a dancing class, or getting out to any sort of social interaction or shopping or anything. So these are just wee examples as I go along. I'll throw in to show you the type of people we're transporting. Just again, who uses our dial lift service, and again that's the rural service we're talking about. The vast majority are adult or elderly, and if we're considering elderly to be 65 plus, I suspect the adult figure of 41%, the vast majority of them are 50 plus. So 80 to 90% of our clients would be 50 plus. You'll see gender as well, many more females travelling than males. Is that an example? I think people working in the community sector will tell you, you can get the women out, not so bad, but the men won't come out. And this is very typical. This shows in hard facts that men don't feel the need to be running to a luncheon club to be talking and blathering, and there's more things to be getting on with, or it's just not for them, and sure, why would I go to that? And so this would show that women are a lot quicker to engage with community activities. And then just the number of active members there, in that year we have over 800 active members. That would register if someone has travelled once in the last 12 months, they would appear in our system as an active member. But I suspect about 600 of them would be travelling once or twice a week. There are very few of them only going once a year or 2 or 3 times a year. What we find is when people engage with us and we can get over that hurdle of getting their application process sorted, maybe getting their smart pass verified and getting them on that vehicle for the first day, if we can get to that point, then we have them. They travel with us nearly every week. We are very aware that process can be a barrier and it can be difficult, but as most people will know working in the community volunteer sector, the funders' demands on information and registrations and numbers are really important, so we have to go through that rigmarole to get them up and running. But once we get them, we do keep them. They do travel regularly and they do engage with us. This lady goes to a luncheon club again, or a day centre, in Oma, 3 or 4 days a week. And I suppose we talked earlier about, is loneliness and isolation an older people's issue, or is it an issue for people who may have the examples of dementia or other people with disabilities? There are a lot of people, for different reasons, find it more difficult to engage and get out. And so our vehicles would all be accessible. Our drivers are all trained to assist people with mobility issues or different disabilities, whether it's visual impairment or hearing loss or any other types of disabilities. We do try and look after as many people as we can. The reason for travel is interesting too, and I suppose this is where we're for me to hear the presentation from earlier on about the theory and stuff, and I sort of give Robert the example earlier, where a lot of our clients go to shopping, personal visit, or personal business or social visits. To try and improve our efficiency, we don't want to be sending a minibus for one person in Plumbridge and taking them back down to Aston, Staban. We want to get 10 or 12 people onto that vehicle. Now that's an efficiency for us, but it also gives people that social interaction. They're then travelling together as a gang and as a group. And I made the point that people will tick and say, they'll book in. So that Plumbridge shopping run goes on a Thursday. So the clients are expected to ring by Tuesday afternoon to say, stick me down for the shopping run on Thursday. I'm up in the Plum. And so they tick and tick, and we tick, and we have 10 or 12 people we lift. The driver goes up to ticks all from the door, go and collect them up the rural lanes and get them into the vehicle, and it takes an hour to get them all gathered up. But the crack and the chat, I've gone out at different times to try and do surveys. You talked about do you have focus groups and you go out. If you get on that bus, you couldn't get your questionnaire filled in with a crack and the codding and the carrying on. It's just a real social activity. And the point I was making to Robert earlier about where do you transport people to and from and where do they go? They will ring up every one of them and say, put me down for the shopping bus on Thursday. And if there's 12 of them go on Thursday, I can guarantee at least 6 of them will come home empty-handed. They were not really going shopping. They weren't actually going to buy stuff. They were just going to get out of the house. They were going to hear the crack in the bus. Who's dead? Who's nearly dead? Who, you know, this is the chat that you hear when you get on the bus, and that crack and that interaction is so critical. And as I say, the evidence is there. They're asking to go in the shopping bus, but they're not going shopping. They just want to get out. They want to hear what's going on in their local community. They'll maybe go and someone will go and have a cup of tea or coffee. Someone will meet friends, and then they'll get back in the bus and go home. So that, and they'll tell you as well that, you know, that sort of kills a day for me. That, you know, that puts me day in, because they'll tell us anecdotally it's a really, really long day when you're on your own. So people will use our service just to get out of the house, and they'll tell it to you as well. There was a question earlier about how do you broach the subject about loneliness with older people. We have had focus groups. We have gone out and done surveys in our buses, and I don't know whether it's because the majority in the room are ladies, or whether our users are ladies, or because they gain confidence because they're all together in a wee gang. But they have no qualms at all about saying, if I didn't get out in that bus, my head would be away. I couldn't cope. Oh, I'd be in the depths of despair. They don't seem to. I haven't heard too much where people are reluctant to admit to that. If I wasn't getting out, I would be very lonely. If I wasn't getting out, I would be depressed. People have told us that regularly. So I don't know whether maybe they know us well, they're more comfortable, they're travelling together, and if one person, you know, you always have a sort of a spokesperson in any group, and if they start going down that line, people will be in, oh, that's right, you're right, Maggie, it would be a long old day if you weren't getting out, and I'd be lonely surely, and when the luncheon club's off for a fortnight in the summer, you miss it, and you do get a wee bit low. So we've had many examples where people will tell us that. So that's a range of where people go. The membership criteria then, this is the sort of the detail on it, and this is sort of set by our funder, that the service is aimed at people who live in a rural area, and a rural area, sometimes there's a debate about am I rural or am I urban. The way our funder sees it is, if you're a member if you're within the map of the urban scheme, which is provided by Disability Action or Bridge here in Derry, you're either one or the other. You can't have a foot in each camp. So if you're urban, so don't ring EASILINK, and if you're not urban, you are rural, so you can engage with us. And then having difficulty accessing everyday services due to a lack of transport. So again, we have a range of people who travel. I think that's outside the Foyle side in Derry here. And the operational hours are, well, I mean, some people see them as restrictive. You know, why can't we go morning and night? There is a limit to the resource. It is difficult to cater for everybody's needs. People will challenge us and say, well, that doesn't give me much chance to have a social life or go out in the evening. But what we're trying to do there is provide as much as we can within a limited resource. So it is currently restricted to Monday to Friday, 8 AM to 6 PM, and the bookings must be made 4 PM 2 days before the day you want to travel. That gives us a chance to schedule the trips better and be more efficient at what we do. And we do always try and encourage, for a number of reasons, but I'll be honest, primarily from an efficiency point of view, we try and encourage people to travel together, but that has the knock-on effect of encouraging people to interact and to build relationships and friendships with their fellow clients. That's a young girl with a learning disability who goes to Oma College. We transport about 30 or 40 young adults either into Oma College or into North West Regional College here. We also, in recent times, have been transporting people to a couple of social farms in the area. And I don't know if you're aware of that concept, but it's one as a total culture. I love them. Where there's a farm outside Claudy and there's one up in outside Plum Bridge. And there's about 25 of them across Northern Ireland, where the farm is set up in such a way that it's young adults with learning disabilities, particularly young boys who maybe don't engage much and aren't happy sitting in a day centre. You come out of special needs schools at 18 and you could be pushed into an adult day centre and sitting with people who are in their 50s and 60s, and you can imagine that sort of stereotypical view of, you know, everybody sitting around in the armchairs around the day centre room all day looking at each other. These young boys really like to get out into the fresh air, get their hands dirty and be active. And so they'll go and they'll help the farmer for a day, and the farmer will line up a few wee jobs for them to come, and they'll moved the sheep from here to here, or the sheep are finished lambing and we're now moving, cutting a bit of hay. So they do that, and I mean, it's one that I personally think is fantastic for the individual, and we're really, really keen to be involved with. But the problem we have had is that this is where the funder kicks in and makes it difficult. Most of those people who want to attend those farms are actually from the city, from Derry, and then they can't be members of the rural scheme, so we can't take them out. And then Bridge are in Derry, and they can't afford for their resource to be away out in Claudy for a day. That's a bus sort of gone for the day that they could be lifting 20, 30 people in Derry. So it's not always easy. And again, it's one where the Western Trust will say, well, look, community transport should be able to help these people get to social farms. It's a day opportunity. It's a new thing. It's great for the client. And I'm very supportive of it. I think it's fantastic for the young person. The problem is it just doesn't always work and it doesn't always fit. And that's where we're sometimes really banging our head against a brick wall to make sure that the service we're kind of allowed to provide or funded to provide doesn't always match the needs of the individual client. These are just a list of the priority groupings. We do reach full capacity on many days. We try not to. Our refusals would be very, very low. There are many months where we have no refusals, but we may have one or two, and we're sort of advised to prioritise the clients in the order of older people first, then people with disabilities, and then people who don't have suitable public transport. They may have a bus that's near but not near enough. So we try and work that, but really our starting point as an organisation, if we in any way at all can get them lifted, we will. And we do use a range of provision. We have 15 accessible minibuses and 16 paid drivers. But we also use volunteer car schemes, and I have a picture of some of our volunteers later on. But our volunteers drive their own car, and they're used in local areas, for example, in Claudy, where the Claudy volunteer picks up the Claudy client and takes them to Claudy GP, rather than us sending a bus from Strabane or Derry out to Claudy to do a 1 mile trip. So the car scheme, we have 30 or 35 registered volunteer car drivers across the area. We would provide about 25% of our dial lift trips of the 36,500 we showed earlier. There would be 8,000 or 9,000 of those trips provided by volunteers. And again, when you're talking about older people and loneliness, our volunteers are nearly all 60 plus, and an awful lot of them will tell us, I do this because I get so much out of it. It fills my week. The crack's great. I'm meeting clients. I'm lifting the same people every week. I'm building friendships and relationships there. And it just the feeling of helping and being involved is one thing, but they will state categorically. We've one. I'll show you a picture later. And she's a serial volunteer. She volunteers for the Samaritans on a Friday night, and she volunteers in Alton Galvin. She volunteers for us, and she would say if she didn't have something in her diary for a particular day, she'd be worried that her mental health just dips just dramatically. If she doesn't be out for 2 or 3 days, she will admit openly that her mental health suffers very, very quickly, and she just loves to have something in it. Even if it's just one wee trip, Newton Stewart to the GP and back, half an hour, she's got something in her diary for tomorrow, and that helps her plan her week. So that's a bit of cotton about that happens. The rural service, there is a fare to it, and I suppose the main reason being that the further you travel, we have clients who will travel 20, 22, 24 miles. If we're taking people from the far side of Castlederg or Kiln or Ahayarn into Strabane, it can be 17, 18, 19, 20 miles. And that can't be the same as someone looking to get from new buildings into the area where it's only 2 or 3 miles. So there is a scaled fare band by distance, but we do accept the smart pass in the rural scheme. So about 80% of our clients would have a smart pass, either a senior smart pass or the disability half fare smart pass. So a lot of our clients, that funding for the smart pass use in our service is a real good selling point for us, where a lot of them can travel for free. And that's a happy camper on our way home from, I think that's Barra Day Centre, they go to those ladies. The Disability Action Transport Scheme then is the urban equivalent. Disability Action have that contract for all of Northern Ireland. They deliver Belfast themselves. Bridge Accessible Transport deliver the service in Derry City, and then the rural partnerships like ourselves deliver in the what you consider the market towns across Northern Ireland. Any town with more than 10,000 population is a DATS town, and as I say, we deliver in Strabane and Omagh. This is focused more on people with disabilities. The membership is free. There's a single fare because it's in the town. You're living in the town. You're travelling within the town, so there's no big distances. So there's a set fare of £2.30, single fare. The Smart Pass is not accepted in the DATS service, which is different from the rural one, and causes a wee bit of consternation sometimes when you get two different groups of people into the same room. And the operational hours there are a wee bit wider. You have 8 to 8 Monday to Friday, and you have the 9 to 5 Saturday, Sunday. So where in one scheme you can travel for free, but it's restricted to Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. In this scheme, the operational hours are wider, much wider, but unfortunately you pay your fare each time you travel. So it sort of swings and roundabouts. But as I say, the local provider in Derry City is Bridge Accessible Transport, who we work with all the time and have done for years. And there'll always be a call from Bridge or from a client, am I rural, am I urban? So we do try and make sure that nobody gets missed in between. I talked earlier about we have our minibuses, we have our volunteer car schemes. We've actually just recently got ourselves a taxi licence, and this is our new taxi that's in Omagh that really does the disability action work in Omagh, because the numbers are so big. It can justify that vehicle just doing the DATS work all day. So this is an accessible vehicle that we've just got. It's set up to have a wheelchair in the back, 3 passenger seats in front of that, and then the driver and another passenger. So it can take a wheelchair and 4 clients, and it's very good. A lot of clients who are wheelchair users will have a carer with them, or a family member, or a family and a child or something. So they do like that notion that they can travel together in a smaller vehicle as a preference for them. And so this vehicle has been very well received by our clients who are wheelchair users in Omagh. So I suppose we did a piece of work, well, it was actually Community Transport Association did a piece of work last year. It was a stakeholder engagement report, and it just set up focus groups and asked people what's good about the service, what's not. Now this is really just a snapshot. They went on forever and ever, and I suppose the feedback seems, I don't know why you say it's sort of bland. My concern about the subject and about transport and about isolation for older people is it's not that new, and it's not that cool, and it's not that it's really cutting edge, and it's it can be a wee bit boring. Older people will say, "Aye, well, transport's an issue, aye," and they've been saying that for 15 years or 20 years. And we provide a bit of transport. We don't provide for everybody. There are many people out there who could use our services, but with funders and with government departments, they want new stuff, and they want cool stuff, and they want social media stuff, and they're always looking for something a bit more exciting. And I'm sometimes concerned that transport is absolutely critical. We're told every day how important our service is, but it doesn't hit the headlines. I mean, we've gone to the Pensioners' Parliament with Age Sector Platform. We've engaged with AGNIE, we've had the Commissioner for Older People out, and it's very much, transport, that's right, transport's important. And it gets a reference and gets a mention, but it's never really top priority, and it's never really life or death. It's, if you get your transport, that's grand. If you don't, well, sure, we'll try and get something sorted out for you. So I'm concerned, not that it's an issue for a cry for additional funding or looking for more, but I think it's a very, very important issue, and I think it makes such a difference in people's lives, and it isn't that well measured. And we're probably most at fault for that. As the local provider, we do not do near enough to find out what people like or don't like about our service, what other services we could provide, what we could do better, and worse again, we're not that good at capturing people's stories beyond the transport trip. What does that mean to your life? How much does it make a difference? How critical is it? What would happen if we weren't here? How dramatic effect would that have in your life? Would it matter a wee bit, or would it be the most significant change in your life in the last 5 years? So we should probably do more for that ourselves. And I suppose loneliness and isolation is a big issue for older people. We help some older people. We have 800 odd active members. I am sure there's more than 800 others who we could be helping in our area. It is very difficult to promote your service widely and extensively to people who are not engaging with anybody. You can't go to the luncheon club and tell them about transport, because the only people who are there are the people you've just taken in. What about the other 15 people in that local rural area who don't engage? So it's hard. Now, Dara did do a piece of work on a project called Mara, which was maximising access in rural areas. It was successful in going out into the countryside, finding people who weren't engaging and trying to refer them to the Warm Home Scheme, community transport, a benefit check through CAB, things like that. And that had some good successes. But those hard to reach people are really, really hard to reach, and we've got a rural focus, and we're trying to get out there, and we're trying to word of mouth and encourage our current members to think about people in their locality who might benefit from the service. We're trying to promote our services and ask our existing clients to identify other people who might benefit from our service, but it is very bitty, and it's not that scientific, and it is very difficult. So whatever we might ever do together, I think organisations, particularly in the community voluntary sector, and I suppose the statutory sector is another where we get referrals, and we do feel very strongly that the social worker has got a big stack on her desk, and her focus is reducing that stack. And if you can get one of those bits of paper to email off to EASILINK, well, that's one more off my desk. There's never any follow-up, there's never any engagement in advance of that. It's just a firefighting, panicking match. Somebody's stuck, can you transport them? If you can transport them, well, they're off my desk. And I do think that the Trust could engage better with the community voluntary sector. But I think the community voluntary sector could work better together too. We do try. We have a fantastic relationship with U3A here, with Ally Foyle in the room, with the Red Cross in the room. There are organisations in this room that we work with all the time and try, and what we call cross-refer. I have somebody here that's in my books who could really benefit from your transport. I'm transporting somebody here who could really benefit from your befriending scheme or your luncheon club. We try and do that, but it's very, very difficult. And as I say, those people who are completely disconnected are really difficult to re-engage. And my personal opinion would be, you can't ever let someone slide off the radar, because once they're off the radar, they're really, really, really difficult to get back engaged again. So I think the intervention needs to happen before they declare, I'm alone, I've no contact, I haven't been out of my house in 3 months. That's nearly too late, because see, when you get to that point, they're nearly lost forever. They're virtually impossible to re-engage again. These are some of our volunteers. June's the lady in the middle that I was telling you about, who volunteers for everybody and who will despair if she doesn't have one wee run every day of the week. And Mary on the left from Castlederg, and Mona on the right is from Staban Town. So our volunteers are absolutely critical to what we do. They are by far our most committed people. You'll pay a driver a contract of employment, and he'll do his hours, and he'll look after the clients, and they do enjoy their work. And it's great engagement with people who are very appreciative of the service, and you're never getting any grief, and there's no fallouts, and it's a handy number. And a day like that, cruising about the countryside with your arm out the window, you couldn't beat it. But our volunteer car drivers would literally do anything for you. They are so committed to the organisation, they're so committed to our clients. They have this one-to-one, because a volunteer, by the nature of us trying to be efficient, we need to give them runs in their locality, so we don't want to be reimbursing them miles for going 20 and 30 miles up the road. So, as I said before, the Claudy volunteers lifting people from in and around Claudy, the Castlederg volunteers lifting people in and around Castlederg. If they don't know them, they know their mammy, or they know their neighbour, or they know their sister, or they went to school with their brother, and then all of a sudden, our volunteer has got themselves a wee connection, as well as the client having a connection and a loyalty. And our clients will regularly ring up and say, can Mary take me to the doctors? They don't ring up saying, can EASILINK take me, or can you send your bus? They ring up and ask the volunteer by name. And that's how precious it is to them and how close they are. That relationship is really, really close. Other people have said that Cargie, who Southern All Ireland body on older people's issues, they have said that transport's a major problem for older people, particularly in access and healthcare. 2/3 of single pensioners in Northern Ireland do not have a car, and just 28% of women over 70 years hold a driving licence, compared to 70% of men. So there are a lot of people out there who don't have access to their own transport, and as you well know, maybe I shouldn't assume that a third of the room is Belfast based. The public transport provision in rural areas is atrocious. And that's a budgeting issue. It's not economically viable. I understand all the reasons why, but we had Mighty Oaks, Derry Healthy Cities piece of work done about 2 months ago in the library, and myself and Paula from Bridge Accessible Transport did a presentation on transport. The TransLink guy was there as well, and our city-based friends were given off because the frequency of their bus had dropped from every half hour to every hour, 8 or 10 or 12 times a day. And I'm thinking, you don't know you're living, because in Plumbridge there's one bus in the morning and one bus in the evening goes to Oma, and that's your lot, take it or leave it. So you need to make sure you're comparing like with like, but in the rural areas the public transport network is poor. We try and fit in as best we can, but there are many, many more people who could benefit from services like ourselves. That's another happy bunch. That's me done. I don't know if you have any questions now or later, but thanks very much for your time.